Engines roar on a moonlit stage, steel beasts roll a distant wage. Truckers' voices crying through the night, tales of speed and endless fights. Miles and miles, all our strength we give. Hauling dreams, we fight to live. Lonely highways call our name. In this life, we find our fame. Neon lights and diner blues, truck stops where we share the news. Turning wheels in endless miles, stories fill the smoky aisles. Miles and miles, all our strength we give. Hauling dreams, we fight to live. Lonely highways call our name. In this life, we find our fame. Neon lights and diamond blues, truck stops where we share the news. Turning wheels and endless miles, stories fill the smoky aisles. Miles and miles, all our strength we give. Hauling dreams, we fight to live. Lonely highways.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody's doing good this fine Thursday evening. If you're out there trucking and you listening to us on the podcast live, we appreciate you being here tonight. And I'll go ahead and say this: if you listening to us on the replay over there on Spotify, iHeartRadio, or either on Apple's iTunes podcast, we appreciate you listening in on the repeat. But tonight, we got a special guest for y'all. We got Miss Rebecca Brewster from ARTI coming on to talk to us about one of the latest studies that they come out with. And we're excited to talk to her about this. It's been a good day today. I was not in the trucking today, but I was out educating young and up and coming motors today about how to share the road with our commercial vehicles. And, when we're out there doing that, and if we can just change one mind about how they drive around commercial vehicles and distracted driving, our job's done. And, it's good. So I appreciate everything that everybody does every day on a daily basis about keeping the motoring public safe around you, because it is part of our job to be safe. And, I know we got to advance loads and get them to where they're going and get them there on time, but it's part of our job to be safe around the motoring public. Okay. So anyway, it was a good day of trucking. Now, yesterday wasn't so great trying to get out of Atlanta. It got kind of treacherous. It was raining. And wow, I mean, I really backed it down, slowed down, and just kind of, got my way south. And, because, anytime it rains like that, you need to slow down and you need to create space. So anyway, I'm glad that, you all are doing good tonight. I'm going to bring our co-host on in here and let Steve greet everybody tonight. So y'all just hang tight, and I'll bring Steve right on in here in just 1 second. So we'll bring him in here on his theme music. How about that?
Good, baby,
we're rolling.
Everybody, Mr. Steve Brand. Steve Brand.
How's everybody doing this evening? How's everybody doing? Glad to be on the show. Glad to be back in that.
Steve, you're sounding good tonight, man. It sounds like you got that microphone firing on all cylinders there.
Yeah, I think we got the problem figured out a couple weeks ago, so hopefully we're in good shape now.
Yeah,
But
you was limping a couple weeks ago because that thing wasn't doing right. But hey, you're sounding real good on my end, and I hope everybody out there y'all can hear Steve good. But Steve, how was your day of trucking up there in Ohio around the Buckeye State?
yeah, it's a little slow start. The weather's catching up with everybody. Of course, they had weather out west and went up towards Chicago. So a lot of our freight got canceled yesterday, and then they had the snow the day before going across the south, and that kind of slowed things up a little bit. But no, it's a good day. Other than when I got back to about Mansfield, and then it started snowing again. But hey, it's all good. Like you said, we just slowed down, let them go. And yeah, I was just kind of blowing around a little bit. It wasn't nothing accumulated or nothing. So everybody made it safe and sound. And hey, we're on the podcast. We're with the good people. It's good people.
Have you had the opportunity to check out that ARTI study that just come out on the bottlenecks?
Yes, I did. And like I kind of joked there, I've been trucking 36 years, and some of the same bottlenecks was 36 years ago. It's like, Lord, what is going on here? But and that's the thing. I want to bring that up. Construction.
Yes.
They're going to work on these bottlenecks, but during this construction, slow down, people. Slow down, please. That's them men and women in that construction want to go home to their families too. You ain't going to lose that much time. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. But slow down, give them some room. And if there is a vehicle sitting on the side, I don't care if it's a broke down car or what it is, move over. Move
Right.
over. You don't know what's around that vehicle. Something could step out in front of that car, step out in the road, lose your footing, whatever. You've got to be safe.
I
But
know Alan Boyd says it's best when he talks about construction sites. Alan says, it's a temporary inconvenience for a major improvement. And that's all it is. Exactly it. A major improvement for everybody to get to where they're going and for safety also.
yes, sir. Just
But
slow down. I mean, what's a few seconds? It ain't gonna hurt nothing.
that's right. Exactly. Well, I was actually reading through the study, and I'm sure Rebecca will address this, but I saw a number on there. I think it said something like 436,000 drivers. Whenever they hit the bottleneck, and I guess it's the equivalent of 436,000 drivers sitting idle. And she can speak more to that, but that number just jumped out to me because of some of the bottlenecks that we have here in the United States. And 3 of them are in the area that I travel quite often, which is every
Right.
day up in the Big A there. So I'm really interested in talking to her a little bit more about these bottlenecks. And
Yes.
if
Yes.
anybody's listening to us tonight, we're going to open up the phone lines at the end of the show. And if you got any questions for Rebecca, we'll be glad to take your phone call. And I'm sure Miss Rebecca will be glad to, receive those phone calls. And anyway, Steve, what else you got, brother?
Not much. I'm ready for winter to be over with. I'm really ready for winter to be over with. But hey, come Saturday, we're gonna go south for a week. We'll get in a little sunshine. So might be tanned up when I get back on the air in about 2 weeks. So hopefully.
It's kind of funny. Last weekend, I took a quick trip. Me and my wife, we took a trip over to Fernandina, Amelia Island. We just kind of like a last minute getaway because it's only like 2.5 hours from where we live out down here in South Georgia.
Right.
And I got over there and I was sending our friend Wayne Crowder pictures of how nice it was and everything, because he was down here a couple of weeks ago because, he's retired now. He went down to Key West, and that was the time that it got cold down here and we had the snowstorm and everything else. And anyway, I said, see, when you leave, it all comes back. But you brought all that cold weather with you down here from Indiana.
Exactly. He carried that down there. He carried that down. I tell you what, this winter has been some weird weather. I'm telling you, 10 inches of snow in New Orleans. Really?
Brother,
Are you kidding me?
8 inches of snow right here in Valdosta, Georgia.
I'm telling you. I called a buddy of mine. We've been friends for 50 years. We grew up in the neighborhood there together in Missouri. And I called him. I was coming back from Wichita. And I called him, and he lives down there in Houston. and he was telling me he had about 4 or 5 inches in his backyard. But he said, man, they got almost a foot down there on the coast, down there around Corpus. I said, you know what? There's some redneck somewhere on a surfboard with a pair of cowboy boots, swim trunks, and his cowboy hat. I guarantee you, you find YouTube, give it 24 hours, and there's going to be some redneck out there, and it's going to be snowing on the beach. You know,
that was somewhere out in Texas, because I've seen a video of somebody that was actually skiing behind a pickup truck, on a road. So there you go. There you go. But I will tell you, I'm glad it's gone. I'm glad I don't have to deal with that all the time down here, because I might have mentioned it on last week's show. My pool enclosure collapsed on me. It held up through the hurricane. It was rated for wind, but it's not rated for weight. So my pool enclosure collapsed. So I've got that demoed, ready to go, insurance claim and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm not a fan of the snow right now.
I understand. I'm not either. So, it doesn't bother me none when they call up and say canceled. I say good. Yeah. I'll just stay home, but
well, on that note, Steve, before we bring Rebecca on, since you live up there, you drive in some, on the snowy roads, icy roads and all that. What's some good tips that you could give drivers out there?
Big thing is slow down. That's the major thing. Keep your distance. Put more distance than what you normally do. Good safe distance is 4 seconds. Put 8 seconds. Put 10 seconds. Lift sooner. Brake less. If you got a diesel car like we got, Jake brakes and stuff, don't use them. Light pressure on the brakes. Don't stab your brakes. Anytime you stop, clean your mirrors. Clean your windows and mirrors. Get that visibility out there. We got a lot of problems in these semis. Ice builds up on your wiper blades. Pull your sun visors down. Turn it on as hot as you can. Crack your windows. Get a little circulation going in there. Try to get that melted. Don't be driving down the road like I see people all the time. They're all scrunched down trying to look at this little bitty spot where the wiper hit. Find a safe place. Get that ice off there, and do like I do. I carry a bucket of rock salt with me. I got a shovel with me. I got some bottles of water with me, some peanut butter crackers, stuff like that underneath the passenger seat. You never know what's going to happen. And,
absolutely.
I have an extra jacket, have an extra blanket, something. You don't know what's going to happen, but
you don't know if you're going to get caught out there or not.
No, you don't. You really don't. I got the passenger floorboard in my truck, and underneath the passenger seat, just packed full of stuff. I mean, you just never know. Got to change of clothes in case got to hit a motel, whatever. But the main thing is slow down and put distance. Don't be driving like an idiot, And I see it all the time, man. These people, it starts snowing, starts raining. It don't matter. They're trying to drive like it's 100 degrees outside and just hammer down.
Yeah. And one thing I will add to that, Steve, snow or rain or whatever, kick that cruise control off.
Yes, turn it completely off.
Right.
And because a lot of vehicles. I mean, my Peterbilt's got everything on the steering, so you never know. You might accidentally hit a button, then the truck takes off on you. And you don't know what's going on.
Right.
And a big thing too is when you see a bridge, don't hit the brake in the middle of the bridge, people. Don't hit the brake. Just kind of accelerate a little bit and just coast across the bridge. And then when you get back on flat ground again, just, take off. But I see that all the time. Man, people hit them bridges and then I see the brake lights come on, then it starts fishtail. And I'm like, oh, here we go. But that's the main thing is just slow down and, don't. If you get the ice built up on the wipers, stop and clean it off. There again, we're talking about bottlenecks. We're talking about losing time and everything. What's more important, get home and get home a little late or not get home at all?
Right.
My motto, most important trip home, buddy.
That's right. So on that note right there, let's bring Miss Rebecca Brewster on here, and we'll bring her in on our champion song here. How about that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Everybody, Miss Rebecca Brewster. She is a champion in her own right in our minds. Right, Miss Rebecca?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Miss Rebecca, we appreciate you coming on Truckers Voices tonight. And we are broadcasting live right now on Facebook on several different pages. One of them is the Safety Driver Cure. And then we're also broadcasting live over on YouTube. So, but I do want to thank you for coming on, and we're excited to talk to you about some of the stuff that's going on with ARTI and some of the latest study that you just come out with, released today.
We did. We put it out yesterday. It's our annual list of the top 100 truck bottlenecks. And it sounds kind of weird to say I like congestion. I don't like congestion, but this is one of my favorite studies that ARTI does every year. And so if you'll indulge me a little bit, I like to talk about how we do this research, because sometimes people call it a survey. And I always kind of bristle a little bit at that, because this is, and we do a lot of survey work, and that's very important work. But for this analysis, this actually generates from truck GPS data. So we do this analysis using this massive data set of truck GPS data that comes into ARTI in real time, and we can do a whole host of analyses with it. For this particular annual analysis, we are monitoring traffic congestion at 328 specific locations all around the U.S., at least one in every state, but we've got 328 places where we're keeping an eye on traffic congestion. And so each year we take a full calendar year of that GPS data, so January 1 through December 31st, and we look at two metrics. We look at how slowly trucks are operating and how many trucks are impacted. So speed and volume go into this calculation to come up with the 100 worst places to operate a truck. And I have friends who bust on me all the time and say, you put Atlanta in the top just because you live there. And I'm like, no. The data are what the data are. So the data tells us Atlanta is a bad place to drive. It's not the worst place to drive, but it holds its own against big cities.
It does. And I can back you up on that, because I try to get in and get out of there every day. And we actually have drivers that go all the way up through Atlanta, above Atlanta, and then have to come back through Atlanta with the company that I work for. So it's a challenge. But we make it work.
So so Atlanta's tough, but it doesn't show up on the top 10, the top 100 list until number 4. So there's 3 places that come higher, and the number 1 spot. And if your listeners drive in the Northeast, they know this very well. It's a little town called Fort Lee, New Jersey. You might not know where that is, but you sure know where New York City is. And yes. Fort Lee is the New Jersey side of the George Washington Bridge. So that location has been the number 1 truck bottleneck now for 7 years in a row. And I personally don't think in my career we're going to see it drop off, because it's basically 6 roads that come together to a toll bridge. And that's a toll bridge going over into the most populous city in the nation. So there's all that freight demand for things to go into New York City. And this is one of the bridges to go over to get into it. And it's a toll bridge. And, now they've put congestion pricing down in lower Manhattan. So now trucks not only have to pay the toll to get over the GW Bridge and go over the worst truck bottleneck in the country, if they're going to deliver in southern part of Manhattan, they're going to pay a toll there too.
That would absolutely just aggravate me if I come up to that bottleneck and then I had to pay a toll to go across the bridge there. Oh my gosh. So go ahead, Steve. Yeah.
With that being said of the toll, I noticed running up in the Northeast when I get the chance every now and again, a lot of the toll booths are coming down and they're going with the tag readers.
Mm-hmm.
Is that helping somewhat so people don't have to stop at the toll? Like you got the West Virginia Turnpike, so you got 3 tolls on that. And, especially around the holidays and stuff, coming north, coming south, is that helping the tag readers, getting rid of the toll booths? Is that helping somewhat?
Well, certainly anytime you don't have to stop and you can keep traffic flowing, that's going to be helpful. Yes. Right. I might suggest an even better way to expedite traffic would be to just get rid of the toll altogether.
10-4. I agree. 10-4. Because when you drive on a toll road and it's rougher than the standard highway, it makes you wonder what they did with the money.
Right. How's it being spent? And ARTI's got a whole nother study that we did several years ago we looked at a number of the toll authorities around the country and how much they bring in tolls and then where that money goes. And it's almost 50%, or I don't remember the exact percentage, but a very high percent goes to administration, basically the cost of collecting the toll, so that very little actually makes its way into roadway maintenance or capacity expansion.
Okay. So Miss Rebecca, I want to ask you, and I want to kind of back up just a little bit. You said that your studies consist of GPS and data that you collect from that. Can you kind of walk us through that, how ARTI collects that data? I guess the question I'm really asking is, do you have certain companies that let you get into their GPS, or how does that work?
Well, we have very strict agreements around how we talk about that data. So I will tell you that the data set itself represents nearly 1 million freight trucks operating nationwide, predominantly class 7 and 8. So there are other data providers in this space that have light duty trucks and, vans and delivery vans. ARTI's data set is class 7 and 8 commercial vehicles. So that's why we call it a truck bottleneck list, because that's where our data comes from. But I always have to remind the media, because sometimes a reporter will say to me, well, this is traffic congestion caused by trucks, right? And I'm like, oh, no. It's just that our data comes from the trucks. And so that's how we're able to measure the level of congestion. But these are not locations where the cars are able to go really fast, but the trucks are not. Everybody at these locations is feeling the pain of this congestion. And as you guys know, you're the professionals out there doing it. Rebecca Brewster can take other options to get to work. I could go at different times. I could take transit to work. You guys have one place you operate, and that's the nation's highways. So this congestion impacts you guys more significantly than it does a four-wheeler, but it's painful for everybody. And Tim, before you brought me on, you were talking about our calculation of the workforce equivalency of what congestion adds up to. So that was part of our cost of congestion study, where we looked at the cost of congestion to the trucking industry across the entire country, again, relying on that truck GPS data set. In 2022, 1.2 billion, with a B, 1.2 billion hours of wasted driver productivity. That's the equivalent of 436,000 truck drivers going nowhere for an entire year. That's how impactful congestion is.
Wow.
That's good. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I was actually looking over the study here, and it also talks about how much fuel is wasted. Do you want to speak to that just a little bit, Rebecca?
Yeah, obviously if you're sitting there stuck in traffic, you're going to be burning fuel, and there's so much concern about emissions these days. So when you're sitting there stuck in traffic, you've got fuel being wasted and you've got emissions being generated. I mean, it's really a very difficult thing. So we've got 6.4 billion gallons of diesel fuel wasted sitting stuck in traffic. And burning that fuel generates 65 million metric tons of additional carbon emissions. So, you think about all the push, particularly under the Biden administration, to electrify vehicles, to cut down on carbon emissions. And here, just because of congestion, we're adding additional 65 million metric tons of carbon emissions to the environment because we can't go anywhere because we're stuck in traffic.
So during your study, can you tell the listening audience some of the different things that's actually causing these bottleneck and this congestion? Is it range from a variety of things, from construction just to volume, or what?
No, it's a good question, Tim. And so a couple great examples. So one of the ones that we highlight this year is the value of research like this. So when we first started doing this is our 14th year, but when we first started doing it for 3 years in a row, what used to be called the Circle Interchange in Chicago, it's now called the Burn Interchange. That was the number one truck bottleneck in the country for 3 years in a row. At that point, the governor of Illinois, it was Governor Pat Quinn, his office issued a press release and said, we do not want to have the nation's worst truck bottleneck. So we're going to do something about that interchange. So they undertook a very costly redesign study, and then they ultimately rebuilt it. Construction, as you mentioned before I came on, construction leads to a lot of congestion. That's just a fact of life. So
Right.
we didn't see that location move out of the top 10. It moved down from number 1, but it didn't move out of the top 10 while all that work was being done. Last year was the first year it dropped out of the top 10. It dropped even farther this year. And so we took a look with our GPS data, because we have this huge historical data set, what the average truck speeds were before that project got started, and then what they were when the construction was done. And we saw a nearly 25% improvement in truck speeds as a result of that investment in infrastructure. So that's one factor. When you have construction, it gets worse. But as you said, as Alan Boyd says, it's for a long-term improvement. It's a short-term inconvenience for a long-term improvement. But we had another great example in the list. The state of Maryland had a little bit of an infrastructure problem last year when the Key Bridge came down, you recall. And so what we saw at the 4 locations where we monitor congestion in Maryland, we saw on this year's list, all 4 of them went up in ranking. And this is not a list where you want to go up in ranking. You want to go down.
Right.
So, and why was that? Because a major piece of infrastructure was taken out. And so everybody, cars and trucks, had to reroute differently. And that resulted in more congestion.
Right. Steve.
Okay. I'm not real familiar with the area in New Jersey. It's been years since I've been out there. I'm kind of picturing it in my head. But when you get in a situation out there that you do not have space to expand, because you're in a congested area already with buildings and housing and things like that. How, I know you ain't got this answer. You're not construction, like I'm not either, but how in the world would they expand that if they ain't got room?
And that's why I don't think it's coming off the top 3 in my lifetime, because that, unfortunately, I mean, it's a bridge. It's
right. Exactly.
You have to have the bridge, and on both sides of the bridge, it's you come off the bridge in major cities. So you've got major traffic. So that's one and on the New Jersey side, as I said, it's 6 roadways that all come together there. So right. I don't think there's a lot of hope for that one. It's the undisputed champion of bottlenecks, I guess.
Well, with that being said, what we're talking about right here in my backyard, just 50 miles south of me down there in Cincinnati, 71, 75 interchange. That's always on the list somewhere. And I mean, they're talking about building a new Brent Spence and keeping the old one and make the old one for like a local exit on and off, and then the other one be like in the expressway bridge. But that's going to take years. But even when you come down the hill out of Covington, Kentucky, and you start up and go up 71 or 75 either, there's really no place to expand. You've got businesses, you've got skyscrapers and everything, apartment buildings and stuff.
Right. And so sometimes, what becomes a solution, or at least helps mitigate some of this congestion, is one, how are the roadways operated? Are the first responders doing the latest and greatest in traffic incident management so that they're not unnecessarily clogging up traffic as they respond to traffic incidents? That's a whole art and science that we've actually done a lot of research in over the years, where, how first responders park their vehicles so that they protect the responders on the scene who are dealing with the incident, but don't create an unnecessary blockage for the cars and trucks to navigate around it. So how do they operate that system? Other things you can do, are you providing enough traffic information to the general traveling public so that they can possibly avoid those situations. With enough advance warning, a four-wheeler might be able to take an earlier exit to route around that stuff. So traffic information comes into play here. How well you maintain the infrastructure. If it's a road full of potholes and everything, everybody's got to go slower, because you're not going to, it's going to be bad, and you don't want to sit there and bounce your way through this infrastructure. So maintaining the infrastructure even helps smooth out sometimes those bottlenecks.
Right. And that's like you made mention a while ago, being in Atlanta, you can take an alternate route. You can leave a little sooner, leave a little less. Me and my grandfather had that talk. He was working in St. Louis. And like he said, if he was 15 minutes late, it would cost him an extra 30 minutes. So if he stayed at the gas station a little too long, BSing with his buddies or something, he knew exactly what time he had to get on the highway to get up there and what he was going to lose. And he said, "How do you deal with this, son?" And I said, "Well, that's one advantage we got in the trucking industry. Unless we've got a serious deadline, we can hold back. We can go in a little later. We can go through a little sooner. Just like down here in Cincinnati, you can take the bypass. Well, if you go around the east side, it's 17 miles farther. If you go around the west side, it's 19 miles farther. So looking at that, even though I'm a company driver, when I got to take that alternate route, that adds fuel cost to the company. And if you're an owner operator, but then you got to look at it. You got to look at it this way. How much fuel are you burning sitting in that stop and go traffic versus if you're out there just rolling?
Right.
So, it's there's a lot of avenues to look at this.
It's a challenging calculus that truck drivers have to go through, because you're right. Do I go through downtown Atlanta where I know the traffic is bad and I'm going to sit stuck in traffic? Do I try my chances on 285 where, let's face it, it's always bad? What do I do here? What do I do? And particularly for the folks who own their own vehicles, the owner operators who are paying that fuel, it really does become a very challenging situation and decision-making process.
Yep.
So Rebecca, I want to kind of, and I think you kind of touched on this just a little bit. I want to back up. Within this latest study, and the Hurricane Helene that come through and did so much damage, from Florida to Georgia to North Carolina, and really knocked out some roads up there around North Carolina. Does this study take into account that?
Absolutely. When we see major weather events like that, think back to Hurricane Katrina, we lost part of 40 in that one. And then fast forward to Helene, we lost part of 40 in this one. Actually, Hurricane Katrina was 10, not 40. So anytime we see that, and that's where this truck GPS data is so powerful for us, because we can quickly look and see, now here's a piece of roadway that's not being used anymore, and where's traffic going to reroute, and particularly where a truck's going to reroute. And so we knew, looking at that for instance, 85 near Greenville, South Carolina was going to see a lot more traffic. And 80, when you take out that section of 40 there connecting Tennessee and North Carolina. And then to the north there, 81 is going to see a lot more traffic because freight's got to move. You got to move. So when the roadways are knocked out, that's what happens. And I remember a number of years ago, there was a rock slide there almost on the Tennessee border on Ford. I think that was on 40. And the Federal Highway Administration asked ARTI to take a look at this because the North Carolina DOT had selected some alternate routes for trucks, but they said the trucks aren't using them. And when we looked at our truck GPS data, we saw trucks were going on different routes because those drivers knew the routes they were choosing were going to be more efficient. I mean, you guys know how to get the job done. So the DOT thought they knew best, but in this case, the trucks were taking different routes because they knew those were going to be more efficient to get where they needed to.
I got you. Well, looking at this data, and I know you got a lot of data to look at, and you got a team, and you want to talk about your team and what it takes to push out a study like this, and how long it takes to push out a study like this, so we can kind of understand what goes into it.
Absolutely. And I'm very, very blessed to be surrounded by a team of really dedicated, really, really smart people, a lot smarter than Rebecca Brewster is. I wouldn't even know how to begin to deal with the truck GPS data that comes in, but there's a lot of coding of the data and sorting of the data and then mapping of the data. For instance, Alexandra on our team has created, and I should have said this at the top, all of this is available on our website. Anybody can go look at these, and there's no charge to download any of this stuff. But Alexandra has created some really cool animations of the top 10 bottlenecks. So you can go and click on it, and it's a little video, and you'll see what it looks like over a 48-hour period of how it starts to go from green, which means trucks are going at free flow speeds, gets red, 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 and then it gets green overnight, and then it gets red, red, red. It's very cool. And that time cycle is different for every single bottleneck because every bottleneck is unique. And so, for instance, Carla Rose on my team puts together a PDF picture of the bottleneck that has a visual image of it, has the speed functions on it, but also has this really cool time of day profile that Jeff Short on our team has created. And that shows across a 24-hour period for every single bottleneck on the list, when are the worst and best times to go through there. So Steve was talking about going through it at late at night or whatever. Some of these bottlenecks have really bad morning rush hours, not so bad in the afternoon. Others have really bad in the afternoon, not so bad in the morning. Some you just want to stay out of there 24 hours. So there's just no good time to go through them.
Right. I've got a little thing that I kind of live by, and I've done it for years, but I try to get south of Atlanta. I try to get south of the 216 every day before 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, that area there, because after that, coming down from 75 where it merges into 285 where it merges into 75 there, and then 75 merges in with 675 down around the McDonough area. All that volume's just coming right down there, and you can always count on it when you get down to around the 224 Hudson Bridge area. Mm-hmm. You're going to be in a backup. So, it's just volume in that area because there's no construction going on there. And we have an express lane there even, So I don't know. Volume has a lot to do with it too. And I guess it's the time of day. You're absolutely right about that.
It's true. And we've had, when we first started doing this, we had trucking fleets say to us, we took your time of day profile to a customer and said, look, stop asking us to have trucks at your facility at this time of day because you're forcing our drivers to go through X bottleneck at the worst time of the day. Let's rethink the delivery or pickup expectations. That's so gratifying. That means they're using the ARTI data to make this industry better, and that's our mission. That's our mission. So I love to hear stories like that. I love to tell the story about the Berne interchange, how the state of Illinois used this as an impetus to make the investment to fix that interchange because they didn't want to have the worst truck bottleneck. I love to hear those stories of how people are using ARTI's analyses to make the supply chain better.
And hold on just a minute, Stephen. I'm sure you got one queued up there, but when you said that, and the state of Illinois there is using the data and all, how often does that happen? Like with GDOT and other states, that departments of transportations.
Well, and I've seen, GDOT has a pretty aggressive plan for improving traffic around 285 and around Atlanta in general. Mm-hmm. And I have seen in their public announcements, they also cite this is one of the top truck bottlenecks. So we are going to put attention on it. So, sometimes we like to say it's kind of good to be the research gadfly. We just keep saying bad bottleneck, bad bottleneck, bad bottleneck. And then sometimes it gets traction and the DOTs respond.
Right. Go ahead, Steve.
I was just going to say, it's a combination of everything on these bottlenecks. And like Tim, you were saying down there where 675, 75 and everything all comes together. You've got the travelers that do not know where they're at. So they're just trying to maintain a lane. They realize, I'm in a lane that's closing, whatever. And then you've got the hometown people that they think they know how to work this system, and they're jumping lane to lane to lane to lane to lane to lane, and it just starts backing everything up. It's a mess. But I tell you, I cannot brag on ARTI enough. I mean, I've over the years since I've been on the road team, and I've got to know you and know your stuff. And I tell people all the time, go to ARTI's website, check it out. Instead of watching YouTube videos, go pay attention to what's going on there. I mean, I guess that's why I'm lost about what goes on in the world, because I'm paying attention to stuff like this, and it's just, but that's awesome of what you guys do and how much attention you're bringing to. And that's good to hear that these states, these counties, these cities, they're starting to pay attention to what y'all are putting out there, because it helps. And I'm just going to make it funny. I'm glad you said that you do it with GPS, because I could just imagine thousands of people standing out there with a clipboard asking people, what time did you stop? How long you been here?
Oh,
it's old school.
You probably couldn't pay her enough for that, Steve.
Well, but I don't want to undersell the value of drivers providing data themselves, real world data. We always have some survey underway, whether it's our top industry issues survey or asking drivers about their detention experiences or talking to younger drivers about what attracted them to careers in the industry. We love to get that input from drivers. It is such a valuable part of what we do. For this particular analysis, given how many trucks there are out on the road, it would be impossible to bring the level of granularity that we do to identifying the bottlenecks, the time of day profile, everything around the bottleneck analysis. That would be impossible to do with a survey. It just wouldn't have the robustness that doing it with the GPS data brings to it.
Right.
I want to open up the phone lines at this point and see if there's anybody out there that's in the listening audience that wants to call in and ask Rebecca anything. So I'll put the number up there. If you want to call 251-616-2151, we would be glad to have you come on the air. And whatever questions you have to ask Rebecca, she would be glad to answer them for you. I'm going to leave the number up here for just a little bit. And if nobody calls in, I'll take it back down. But we'll just continue on with the conversation here, Rebecca. I want to talk a little bit about the organization in ARTI. And I didn't mention this earlier, but, ARTI stands for American Transportation Research Institute, right?
It does. And we are a 501c3 not-for-profit research organization. So 501c3, that's what the United Way is. So we rely on charitable contributions to do the work we do. So the bottleneck analysis, the top industry issues survey, every one of the reports you can download from our website, all of that has been funded with charitable contributions from the industry. And so we have trucking companies that give us contributions. We have allied members, so equipment manufacturers and truck stop operators and others who supply the industry who give us contributions. And then we have individuals who give us contributions, and we have drivers who will send us a contribution. All of that money goes into what we call a restricted fund, and we only use it to support staff time and expenses associated with doing our research.
I got you. So speaking of truck stops, what value can a truck stop gain from ARTI studies?
Well, certainly, every year when we survey the industry at large and to identify the top concerns, we break it out by what drivers are concerned about versus what motor carriers are concerned about. And it's no surprise to you, gentlemen, the top two continually every year are driver compensation and truck parking. Well, there's a very important role for truck stop operators. is looking for ways to expand. And for each of those issues in that top industry issues survey, we have strategies that people rank. What do you think the industry should be doing? And for instance, on the truck parking thing, it's work with local leaders to alleviate some of the zoning problems that truck stops face when they look to expand or site new facilities.
Okay. All right. Miss Rebecca, we have a call that come in. So welcome to Truckers Voices. Who do we have on the line here?
This is David Cummings.
Hey, David. Good evening, and good to hear your voice. And I know David well. David, it's we got Rebecca Brewster on here from ARTI. So I'm going to let you talk to Rebecca. I'm sure you got a question for her, right?
Yes, I do. A comment and a question, I guess. First off, I used to, for a few years, I dealt a lot with that circle interchange there in Chicago, and I find that really fascinating to learn how the ARTI report affected the state in making changes to that and improving it. And I think that's really, really a neat thing to see what ARTI is doing and the effect it's having on improving our highways for us as drivers.
Well, thank you. Like I say, we hold it up as the poster child. It's still a challenging place to get through, but it's much better than it used to be.
So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was fixing to say, David. So kind of tell us a little bit, David, some of the challenges that you had with that particular area, and from then until now, how it's improved from your perspective.
Well, it's been a while since I dealt with that area as much as I used to. For about a year and a half, I hauled containers out of Indianapolis up into Chicago and back. And so I dealt with the Chicago traffic a lot. Lately, I haven't been through there to see the difference, but I can only imagine if those numbers have gone down, the difference that has made. And I remember going through there when it was under construction and wondering if it was ever going to get finished.
Right. So David, and you brought up the construction part of it. So was it construction combined with volume, in your opinion, that was making it a major bottleneck there?
Well, obviously before the construction, just the volume of everyday traffic, along with all the truck traffic that goes through that area, it was just too much traffic and not enough highway. And then the design of it, and again, the changes they made, reducing those numbers. Obviously, they made the right decision in the way they changed it.
Absolutely will.
But I do have one question.
Yes.
I did not get a chance to read this report yet, but I was just curious if any of the Minneapolis-St. Paul roadways made the list.
They did. So I'm going to grab my reading glasses here. I'm going to go to the list. So hold on just a second. What's really cool about this is we've set it up so you can sort it by state. So let me go to Minnesota here. We've got two in Minnesota, both in the Twin Cities. One is I-35W at I-494. That's number 43 on the list. And then the other one is I-35W at I-94, and that one's 99 on the list. So that one barely made it in, but it did make it in the top 100.
Okay, yeah, that I-35W and 494, I'm not surprised, and I know that that's currently under construction, and hopefully the construction they're doing there will improve that one as well, because that's been a bottleneck for a long time.
Yeah, that one has been, that one actually rose up from number, I got to do this math in my head here. That must have been 56 last year, and it's up to 43. So that's a pretty sizable jump for that one year over year.
Sure. And the construction would probably validate that rise then.
Right.
So David, I do know that you're an LTL driver there, and so is that your major road that you run on every day, or is it just something you take every now and then?
It's one that I take every now and then. We have other guys that are in that area a lot. I've just known about it. Anytime I try to go to the Minneapolis airport, I have to go through that area. So I understand the congestion there. My normal route is in the middle of North Dakota, and I don't think anything from North Dakota made the list. So.
No, nothing in North Dakota or South Dakota on the top 100. But we do monitor traffic congestion there. It's just it never amounts to a whole lot of congestion. So
Right. Yep.
Well, David, thank you for calling Truckers Voices tonight, brother. Steve, you want to say anything, David?
David, truck safe out there, buddy. We appreciate you calling in, man. Appreciate you listening.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you both for what you're doing. I'm a little late to the Trucker's Voice show over the years, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm learning a lot of valuable insights from it, and I appreciate the guests and even your winter driving tips that you gave today. Always appreciate those reminders.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. You be safe out there.
That means a lot, David, and we do
Yep.
appreciate it, man. And don't be a stranger. You're not just a caller. You're actually a family to the show. So you're part of the show. So call in anytime you want, brother.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
All right, brother. See ya.
sorry, my cat just tried to be a camera hog there.
That's all right. That's all right. Hey,
I
he
see
wants
that.
a little,
I was like, what's
little
going on
showtime.
here?
He wants a little showtime. That's awesome. See, that's the great thing about Truckers' Voices. You just never know. Rebecca, I do have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything that shows up on that list, a city that surprises you?
Well,
that you're kind of concerned with it because, not that you know the area, but you do know the area, and you're like, why is this on here?
right. Well, a couple things jump to mind. First of all, Houston is the biggest offender, has been one of the biggest offenders ever. So Texas has 12 of the nation's top truck bottlenecks, and 8 of those are in Houston. And I mean, you think there's bottlenecks in Dallas and Fort Worth and Austin, but nothing like there is in Houston. So that, and what surprises me about that is, Houston's smack dab on the coast there, but it's got a lot of wide open spaces around it. It's just such a sprawling mega city now, with tremendous population growth. And then you got all the trucks coming in for the ports and everything. And it's just, it intimidates me to death to drive around Houston. Well, basically to drive anywhere in Texas because of the, 12-lane highways or whatever. So Houston's a problem. I mean, Houston, we have a problem because they have so many bottlenecks there. But the other one that jumps up and it's goes up and down is a little old city not too far from us here is Chattanooga. And you would think, why on earth would Chattanooga have traffic problems? Well, because you've got 75 coming up out of Atlanta, intersecting with 24, and it's a bottleneck, baby. Chattanooga gets its own bottleneck, and that's not the only one it has, but it's, that's a little city with a big traffic problem.
Right. And I know exactly where you're talking about in that area there. Hey, we got another caller on the line. So who do we have here on the Truckers Voices line?
Hi, Rebecca. Scott Post calling.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, buddy.
How you doing?
Good.
Hi, Steve. Hi, Tim.
Hey, how you doing, Scott? Thank you for calling in.
Oh, you're welcome. You were talking about 35W over in St. Paul, where the Cloverleaf used to go on to Interstate I-35 northbound, going on to the Cloverleaf onto Interstate 494 westbound, and that always jammed up. But they've got a kind of a temporary, not quite a flyover ramp right now, but I think they're going to build a huge flyover ramp. But have you ever done a study? How many vehicles per hour does it increase a flyover ramp versus a Cloverleaf? How much more traffic can you move in an hour once you put in a flyover ramp versus a Cloverleaf on average?
Right. And we have not studied that specifically, but I will tell you, while they were working on the Burn interchange, we saw, it stayed pretty bad because construction makes congestion, but we did see when they put in a flyover, we did see truck speeds tick up a little bit. So it did improve it, a little bit, but to compare a Cloverleaf to a flyover, we have not done.
Because I'm thinking, like, we've got some of our clover leaves here. You're down to 15 to 25 miles per hour because there's always the rollover danger with high profile loads. Where a lot of the flyover ramps, you could probably do 45 or 50 miles per hour
Right.
on a flyover ramp versus the cloverleaf.
That's true. But then I think about, the transition from 285 to 85 northbound in Atlanta here, Spaghetti Junction, and it's a flyover, but you just sit stuck in it. So, traffic never moves on it, seems like.
Yep. Scott, we appreciate we appreciate you calling in tonight. But Scott, I want you to get a plug in there for the safety drive and what you got going on there, if you don't mind, to the listening audience.
I was just talking to Jason Dameron this afternoon, and we've been collecting some $500 donations that gets your name on the logo on a wrap on the trailer. I believe one of the larger trucking companies donated a 53-foot trailer, and then we're putting a wrap on it for Safety Drive for a Cure. And if anybody donates $500, they can get their name up on the trailer. And so the goal was the wrap is, I think, around $4,000, but then we got some other donations, so we've got a little bit of a fund for maintenance on the trailer. You might need tires or an annual inspection or something. So I think we've had 13 donors, and it looks like hopefully now it'll be ready in time for Safety Drive for a Cure.
Yeah, and what Scott's talking about there, listening audience, is that the Safety Drive for a Cure that Herschel puts on every year up there for supporting the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation is we have a trailer now that is going to be used for the competition, but also to haul the equipment around, and hopefully we can spread this thing out in the future. But Scott, the other thing I wanted you to put a plug in for is the raffle that you got going on personally.
Oh, okay. We've got a trailer. It's a utility trailer, a carry-on, and it's 5 feet by 8 feet long. And I'll be bringing that down. And the raffle tickets are $10 a piece. Or if you want to, you can have 3 tickets for $20. So you get, if you buy 3 of them, you'll save $10. And we have those available through Tim or myself, through Venmo. Or you can purchase tickets when we get to Safety Drive for a Cure, and we award that raffle. Anybody that lives somewhat north or some points west, I can pull it back to their house if needed when we on the way back home. And so if you live further away, we'll start some sort of relay system and get the trailer to your house if you haven't got any way to bring it home. Because I know those airplanes don't tow those utility trailers too well.
No.
That'd be interesting to see that hooked to the back of a bird going through the air.
Scott, we definitely appreciate you calling in, and we appreciate you and Nancy being a strong supporter of Trucker Voices, and we appreciate what you do every day. So, Scott, you stay safe out there. I don't know if you're trucking tonight or not, but you stay safe, brother.
Just on my way home right now. I just parked the truck, so we had a little one fuel pump only working, so we had congestion at the fuel pump. So.
By the way,
thank you for all you do, Rebecca. Thank you, Tim and Steve. And,
thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Talk to you later. Thank you.
See you soon, Scott.
See y'all soon.
All righty. Well, that was a good call. That was a good place to start to post-tripping the show, so to speak. And Rebecca, if you don't mind, if it's okay with you, do you mind if I put your email and your contact number up there, the 404 number?
That's fine.
Okay, I copied it from the website, so I'm sure it's okay. It's on the website. So if anybody wants to get in touch with Rebecca about anything, you can contact her at Rebecca Brewster. Or Brewster at trucking.org, or you can call her at 404-247-8787. So we definitely appreciate you being on the show tonight. Steve, last thoughts or last questions for Rebecca?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for all that ARTI does. Tell everybody we said hello down there. Everybody stay safe. And one little comment I like to say when I get in these congestions, everybody says, "What's going on up there?" Buddy, there's just too much rubber and not enough concrete. That's all there is to it. There's just way too much rubber on the ground and not enough places to put it.
Amen.
But, no, thanks again. Tell everybody we said hello. We appreciate everything you guys do. Everybody out there, get on their mailing list. Get an email from them. Read them things. Man, it's a lot of information. A lot of good information. But we appreciate it. God bless everybody out there who's traveling, trucking, and be safe. And like I always say, the most important trip is a trip home.
All right, panel, if y'all just hang on to after we go off the air here for a minute, I want to talk to you on the other side before everybody logs off. Listening audience, we do appreciate you coming on and listening to us tonight. We appreciate the phone calls that we had. Everybody remember, we are on Spotify, we are on iHeartRadio, we are on Apple Podcasts. So you can find us anywhere. You can even go to YouTube and go back to shows way back when and listen to us. So anyway, if you ain't got anything else to listen to Truckers' Voices. Tomorrow's going to be another Friday, another day that people's going to be traveling, trying to get to their weekend. And everybody slow down, everybody be safe, because as Steve always says, the most important trip is the trip home. What I like to say is, hey, we are here to deliver safety and success. Y'all have a good weekend. We'll see you later on Truckers' Voices.
Tim and Steve hit the highway bold and free, with diesel dreams rolling on heavy steel. Every mile is a tale they've got to tell. In the night, their stories start to swell. Truck stops light up with their laughter and cheer. On the open road, there's nothing they fear. Friends gather round, sharing thrills and strife. Life in motion, this trucking life. Hailstorms and endless winding lanes, old familiar tunes driving through the rain. Flat tire fixes under starry skies, fueling up on coffee fire in their eyes. Truck stops light up with their laughter and cheer. On the open road, there's nothing they fear. Friends gather round, sharing thrills and strife. Life in motion, this trucking life. Memories of highways inked in their mind, freight and friendship closer they bind.